Okay, I can see there are around 21 people in the seminar, so I should not wait any further and begin the session. So, welcome all of you. I know it is early in the morning and it becomes difficult to sit in front of the seminar, but I appreciate your efforts and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from the seminar. And I welcome our speaker, Amit Bhai, who is also there. Hello, Amit Bhai. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, so if everything is going fine, am I audible clearly and the PPT shared properly, I can move ahead and
Yes,
just
yes.
begin our, yeah, okay. So let me first introduce to you about the Tech Talk. So we have today's Tech Talk is on React Redux workshop. We had the last Tech Talk, which was for the beginner of the React session. We did a app building there. And if you had not attended that webinar, we have a recording which is uploaded on our YouTube channel. So you can also look at that. So this is a kind of an um, intermediate level session, but it is going to be useful as Redux is not only for React, but can be used for any other JavaScript libraries. So yeah, this is gonna be fun. So before I jump into who we are and why we are doing this, let me briefly give you some details about the stats about the React. So you might be knowing that Gmail, Facebook, which is now Meta, Trello, Google Maps, etc., are all single page applications and that gives outstanding user experience in the browser without page reloading. So that means they have built that with React, and the market for React will rise around 23% over the next few years, which is quite interesting. And React.js has surpassed 10 million downloads, which is 5 times more than the Angular downloads. So among all the JS libraries and frameworks, React has as is winning the game. So yeah, I think this is going to be quite interesting to learn about React and Redux, which might be very helpful for our future career choices. So I'm sure Amit Bhai is going to have some fun with how we are going to take in the session. Also, I've added some graphs. You can see there is a single page application graph which is growing, and there is a graph for React versus Angular. You can see React blue color line is on the top bar. So this is interesting to see. Now, these are some of the introductory things about React, but I'm not going to go into details about it. Technicalities Amit Bhai will share. Just before I hand it over to him, let me just mention who we are. Let me introduce my company. My name is Nirali, and I am the tech manager of Vedity Software Private Limited. We are rapidly growing IT company, and we started in 2021, and today we are proud 40 plus Veditians, and we are still growing. So every day we are having new recruits. So that is quite fun. We expertise in full stack, front end and back end development, cloud, big data, and data engineering. So we have this tech talks on our meetup platform. So if you haven't yet joined, you can go on meetup, you can type Vedity Tech Talks and you can join us. So we post all about our events and that meetup. So by now we are around 300 members. We also had two tech talks every month till today. So in the past, we had delivered tech talks on big data, reactive programming, Azure Big Data Services, AWS, which was also quite fun, application monitoring, Grafana, Java Melody, Airflow, Spring Boot caching, social engineering. When we recently had GraphQL. So these are all the tech talks that had been a really hit in our tech meetup platform. So if you also want to see any recordings about that webinars, you can search them on YouTube our Vedity Tech Talk channel. You will definitely see the recordings there. So for today's tech talk, we are going to have a fun quiz at the end, a Q&A session. 10 questions, quick answers, and the winners will get a chance to win Amazon gift vouchers, which will be fun for them. Now about the speaker, we have here Amit Parmar. He is a senior software developer and is a React devotee, and he has an extensive experience in UI designs, and he has proficiency in developing SPA, which is single page applications using React and JavaScript. And this is not his first seminar or not his first webinar, but he has delivered multiple tech talks on web application development. And alongside, he has written numerous blog articles, which you can also find on Medium platform. You can search for Vedity Tech Talk on Medium, and you can see many blogs written by Amit Bhai as well on React. So that's all from my side. I'm not going to take much more time from you, Amit Bhai. I will definitely, this is all from my end. You can start showing your presentation now. Thank you, Amit Bhai. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, Niral. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks. Let me share my screen. Can you confirm the presentation is visible and running on?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining this morning session. I hope it will be quite interesting and exciting for you people. Uh, just quick glance, session outline is mentioned, right? So it's look pretty simple. Basically, I'm going to talk in sequence with the last, basically the React session that I have covered, where I have left with many important things which need to be covered basically, and that is why I have planned this intermediate level workshop where I'm gonna talk about the core concept. Basically, recently I have published one blog on the Medium platform, as Nirali said. It was basically regarding that how component interact, how component communicate, right, on inside the React application, and that is basically the core thing. If any developer developing a React application, and if they are not good with the communication between components, definitely that impact performance and many more things. Basically, they won't be going to achieve the core work of the application development, right, if they are not clear with the fundamentals of application, right, in terms of communication basically. So that is what I have brought in this particular session. I hope that I will make it this particular session interesting, right? Keep your questions ready, right? We will have the detailed discussion at the end. Let's see how we will go ahead, right? So in continuation with the last workshop only, I have just kept the some basic things, like basically how React component and the core thing, the fundamental thing, right? So I'll trigger out first of all some bot questions, and then we will go in detail with the other section of the whole session. So let's talk about the component first. So basically, what is actually the component, right? And what actually mean by that, right? So those who are writing React applications, they have gone through in detail, but just for the basic idea and for the having just conversation, basically, what is the component? So like React component is nothing but a smallest UI piece, you can say, right? That you can build in isolated environment and you can put all together to make a complex environment. Taken an example for any recent apps like Facebook, Insta, right? They are designed basically inside the React as a React application, and you have seen that the kind of complex UI they are providing, right? So this is what the you can say magic of the components, basically how it works. So components are, you can nest, you can create a nested component, right? Am I audible, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you
Okay.
are. You are.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So
Yes.
basically, what I was saying, that you can create the nested component, you can reuse at the component at different level, right? These are the things that we were discussing last session as well. To make sure that how you make the component, that's the way you can reuse that. So making the component also in a tricky job. Basically, you need to learn that. All component combined together will create your complex UI, and basically certain fundamental things that you have to follow. Basically, component will have the local state, right, which we cannot access the outside the component. So this is the state management inside the component, right? As well as it has one more optional property, which is nothing but the props basically. So it's receive the props from the parent component. We will talk on these two terms basically more on details, so that we will have the more clarity on this. Okay. So basically now when I discuss with what is component, let's just have a quick idea that what type of component you can create in the React application, right? So it's a more fun loving thing. Basically, like those who are started with React application in very in these days basically. So you may have seen that most of the time we are seeing the functional component, but the more classical way of application development is done with the class components also. These days class components are like not used that much, but that was the basically before React 16, if you say, class components were more popular and that they were more useful. But in the recent versions of the React, basically this functional component, become more powerful and empowered. So that's they are not become such a dumb component now. But yeah, in type of React interview, you might get this question that compare these two particular components and where you are going to use which type of component, right? So you need to find the better use cases, right, where you can apply the class component. But let me tell you practically, since last 1.5 year, even though I have not written any new class component, yeah, that is true. So these days class component application development is very least, but yeah, that is you can have the basic idea so that you can, I think, anytime you can reach out to this. So this is basically the small difference. So it says that functional components are the lightweight, and that is why it is more fruitful to implement that. It is easy to write, easy to understand. It just look like a JavaScript function. So that is true that people prefer to use functional component. On the other side, class component has the some boilerplates, basically certain standout things like it has the state management, it has the life cycle method, right? So many things you have to manage if you are running with the class component. But yeah, that is basically the difference between these two component types that we are using in the React application development. As I said, two important terms need to be understood first before we actually reach out to the other concept. So states and props, if you see, basically state is nothing but the internal property of the component. So when you are creating a component, whether it is a functional or whether it is a class component, now you can manage state basically inside, but state will remain the inside property. It's just like you can say a private member or a private property of a particular component, right? Whereas props is nothing but something which is passed into the component from some other component, basically the parent component, right? And you can use the props to exchange the data between components. So that is gonna, very interesting thing that we're gonna see in later stage. On the other side, state changes asynchronously. Now, these statements mean a lot actually. So, those who are working uh, with React, they understand what I'm trying to say. But when we are talking about asynchronously, people take time to understand why it is asynchronous, how it works basically, right? So when we are changing the state of the particular component, lot things happen inside the component and inside your app basically. So this statement means a lot actually, and you need to understand that. On the other side, props are the read only. So whenever components receive props, actually component cannot change that particular property at all, right? They can only read this. So it's a read only property for any component. Yeah. So on the other side, when we are talking about state, it's not accessible outside the component, as I said, and this is an accessible in the child component. We will talk on this props in more detail. We will use that because of we want to communicate between components. We need to learn that. So we will talk on props more in detail. But this is what the basic idea that how these two things will basically work, right? So at this level, I have just given the small introduction and have the basic idea that what is React component. Now let's actually see basically communication between components. This is the core thing basically about this workshop today. So I have just given the overall holistic view that communication, how do we do actually basically. So there are basically three ways actually. Using props, you can do that. There is one more way, that is context API. And the last one, which I'm going to talk about, that is Redux, right? So I have kept the Redux as a separate thing, and then I'll discuss that in more detail. We have some demonstration as well on top of that to understand the Redux part in more detail. But in overall idea, if someone say that how do you communicate or how your component will communicate, so you can have these three options basically. Each has the unique use cases, unique way of working. It may have the special use cases where only props can be better useful. You can go for Redux as well as context API. To make this session simple, basically, I have talked only these two things. One is props, which is more general, more useful, and the other one is Redux, basically more complex and actually the core application and the complex UI required this particular part of implementation. I haven't covered this particular thing, but you can refer my blog basically, and you will get all the details about context API, how it works. So if I say simply props and context API, which is developed inside the React only, and Redux is something as an external thing you can say basically, right? So we will talk on that. Let's talk about the props first, and then we will move ahead. Okay, so communication between component title itself says that we are using props here. So just have a quick introduction. Basically, I said that props are the optional property in React. It is a read only. It gives a way to pass data between one component to another. Right now, interesting thing need to be understand here. React is basically a unidirectional data flow. So if you know the React, where you will be able to pass data in one direction only. So it is like when you are sending data, you can send it from parent to child, child to grandchild, and so on like that. So we have the directory structure like in a tree form. So you will have a root component, and in that there will be children of that, right? So basically, it will be like in that way. So you can send data from parent to child and grandchild and like that. So that is how a unidirectional way of data communication work in React. So here we gonna discuss that how you can send data from parent to child. This is of course a very common use case. In last workshop also we have seen the examples of this, right? Before I touch that part, last thing that need to be just highlighted. If you are using class component, this prop property can be accessed using this keyword, right? So you need to just make sure that if you are writing a class component, right? So you will use this props using this keyword. Let's see the first part that we are sending data from parent to child first. So in parent to child communication, it's very simple basically. So your component that has the ability to pass the data, right? And the component, it has the ability to receive the data. So basically it will be done in that way. So for that reason, we are going to use the props property. So you can see in the example itself, the first, the component I have written, I have kept the both component in the single snapshot. So it will be more easy to understand and just to read that. So first component employee, it's nothing but the parent component, and basically you can see that the employee detail is the child component, right? So I'm calling this particular employee detail component inside the employee component. So this is how I'm just trying to just give you the idea basically. So here if you see, I have employee component where I'm passing this employee name. You see EMP name, that's a particular state member for the employee component, and that I'm passing here as a parameter. So this is how simply you can pass data to the child component, right? So any value you want to send, you can just simply write in this expression. This is JSX expression you see, and basically we are sending any variable, basically state variable here it is, right? Similarly, you can pass the methods also. Employee name, that is nothing but the method through which you can change the value of this employee name. If you want, you can pass the kind of method also. Similarly, any function, any method that you want to pass, you can do it simply by writing this particular syntax, right? And on the child component, let's say if this is a child component, a component employee detail, and if you have to use that, this is the property props that you can use, right? You can destructure that also here, and you can easily use that, right? Many ways are there. So you see here in the child component, what I have kept very simple, that I can access this particular employee name which I'm sending here using props dot emp name, right? So this is what the object that we are receiving in the child component. Now here, if you see, I can't change this particular employee name here, right? So I have no rights to edit this name. If I try to do that, it will not going to allow me, right? So this is how parent to child component child communication work basically. Okay. So this is first way. This is more classical way. Let's go in a reverse way. Basically, this is not possible in straight away. So we need to do some particular mechanism. Basically, we need to set up some mechanism to achieve this child to parent communication. Basically, as I said, it's a unidirectional. So in a reverse way, child to parent communication is not straight away. But let's say if you want to achieve this, what we can do? basically we can create a method, a simple method like this. You can see here the handle employee name change. That is the method I have created and just created to show you the how it can achieve. So now I'm passing this method here as an argument. So I told you in the last slide also we can pass the method also as an argument in the component. So here I'm passing the method. So intensely I have kept these two names simply different so that you can understand that this is also possible basically when we are working with React application. So here the name is the handle employee name change, which I'm passing. So now inside my child component, I can access that with this particular name, right? You can keep this both names simple and same, so that will be more easy to understand and easy to write. But just for intentionally, I have kept this separate. So employee name change here, and then you can access that. So what I've done here, when this function will got called, basically I'm passing some value here, and this value is nothing but when this function will call, basically you are calling a function which is there inside the a parent component. So now when I'm passing some values here, right now I have just passed the simple string called raw and directly which we are, entering here, but you can have the text box or you can have some mechanism to take value in the child component and you can pass that value here, right? But I have just passed the string. Now you can see here in this particular, when this particular method will get called, basically execution will take place inside the parent component, which will receive this name as a raw basically, and it will set to this particular. So now you can see the raw which is entered at the child component, which is received inside the state variable of the employee component, right? So this is how basically in reverse way you can send the data. So it is just like a simple mechanism that we have said. Anytime you want to achieve this particular thing, you can always use this way, right? Anybody can take a screenshot basically to understand more in detail and they can use that later, right? Okay, so this is basically more classical way for communication between component, right? So that's what we understood. Now, as I said, I will not touch this part context API, right? Because of I want to focus more on this part that is Redux. So I have not gone through in detail, but you can refer my blog online, right? My Medium, and basically you can able to reach that, right? So, okay. So that communication between component is about to complete, right? Let's go in detail with the Redux. I have kept in a separate thing, but Redux is again used for only the one reason, that is communication between component, right? And as I told you that Redux is basically, it's not a part of React actually. So Redux, what we are going to use is a third-party library. So I'll tell you how we can set up everything, and we will go from the detail of each and every step so that you will understand how it will work. I have create this particular slide to give you the overall holistic view that how we are going to study this particular thing. But you just take an imagination that from this particular piece of way we are going in this slides, and there we will understand from what part to the actual implementation. And at the end, we will talk about one particular tool as well that will help you to debug and that will help you to understand the Redux basically. So let's understand first of all what is Redux. Those who are totally new to the Redux, they will have the better idea. Basically, if I talk about Redux, it's a state management library. You need to install it separately from your npm package manager, and basically you can use that. And as I said, it's a separate third-party library. It is true that you can use Redux with any of the front-end library like Vue, Ember, Angular, or anything like that, right? So it's not that you can use the Redux with the React application. If you're developing any application in Vue.js or let's say Angular, you can always go for the Redux implementation. There might be certain basic or syntactical changes, but the core thing about the Redux will remain same. It's an open source library, open source JavaScript library. Now, the first and most important thing is that it's provide the central store, right, where you can use the data storage. You can say you can directly access all the components data all together at one place, right? So that is the core thing about the Redux. It's make your complex application easy, right? So imagine any application which has more than 10, 20 components. They are coordinating with each other for any reason. And if you are not using Redux or any kind of mechanism to manage the data communication, it is gonna help for developing such application. It is gonna difficult for managing this application. At the first level, you might find Redux bit complex to understand and bit complex to figure it out or to configure in the application. But once you do that, basically using Redux, your overall communication becomes so easy so that you can manage any type of complex applications with it. It's so flexible, right? It's work with any UI or framework, as I mentioned earlier also, right? Easy to debug. First and most importantly, like if you want to see at any stage what is inside your store, you can straight away check it out using this dev tool. We're gonna talk on this very soon so that you will be more clear of that. And the last thing, difficulty level will decrease by the time. So initially, by looking at my slides and this presentation, you might find that it is bit difficult for you to grasp the whole idea, overall concept, how it works. Basically, it looks bit confusing at the first level, but let me tell you, if you will apply this knowledge and if you will try to implement your first Redux React application, and you will see that gradually you will have the more clarity, and definitely will be easy for you to use this. So learning curve is little bit difficult at the first stage, but yeah, that is true. It's very fruitful when you are going through this. Yeah, this will be the expression for everyone when we are looking at the Redux at the first way. So let's see why Redux basically. So this is important thing. Sometimes the kind of application you are developing where Redux might not that fruitful, right? So it depends on the requirement basically. As I said that your application is too complex, your data communication requirement is too high, then in that case you should use Redux. But if you are developing an application where there is a very few component and the communication is also not that core at the application development, then probably this Redux will not not gonna help you that level. But yeah, the certain things I have mentioned here to just think again and revise your idea of developing application, and you can better judge at your level that whether do you need to use the Redux or not, right? So first thing, it's having the high scalability. So let me tell you, if you are developing an application which has the 5, 10 components, and basically you are finding difficulty between communication between component, you may go for the Redux, and it will provide you the high scalability. Means that tomorrow if you have let's say 100 or more than that components even though in the application, Redux will be happily going to provide you the communication between this data, right, so easily. So scalability point of view, Redux has the upper hand, right? The other thing that it makes state predictable. The meaning is that like once you have the certain mechanism set up, you can easily predict your state. You will be able to judge what will be the your state basically, right? So that is what the point of the easy to debug and test. So once you are configured your Redux application, and if you want to debug that, there is a better way to debug this particular Redux application using the Redux dev tool. We're gonna talk on that later, right? Easily maintainable. As I said, some boilerplate required to be handled when we are developing the Redux application. But yeah, it is easy to maintain. Unidirectional data binding, so it is same as the React application, so it is also following the unidirectional, data flow, and that you will understand when we will go in the detailed architecture of the Redux, how it works, right? Prevent the data inconsistency. In the next slide, I'll talk to the, certain principles of the Redux so that you will understand. Basically, you keep all the data at the single place, so that's, there will be least chances that your data will be inconsistent, right? That is the core thing. Supports of the dev tool, which is the very important thing as a developer. When we are developing application in the development environment, we need to see what is happening inside the application at the runtime. So basically, many times we keep the watch, and many times we have the different way of debugging applications also. But using Redux dev tool, you can see the live timestamp based environment through which you can trigger and when you can see your data basically. And the huge community support is the key thing when we are going with Redux, right? So that is the important thing. Let's understand some core principles. It's just like a set of principles which you need to understand and which you need to remember, mostly for, let's say, interview questions. So just go in detail. Yeah, that mean a lot actually, this principle. And maybe at this level it may be difficult for you to understand the all this principle, but when you are used to with this Redux and React application development, at that level you will have the more clarity on this three statement basically. So first I will say single source of truth. If you can see here, single source of truth. So basically, when we are creating React Redux application, you will have one place where your data will stay. So all the data belong to the React application being stored at a single place only, right? Due to that, what will happen that your data become consistent. You can store at the data in the one particular place, and anybody want to access the data, they can refer that particular single place. And we use the term called store, where we are storing the Redux data, right? And in that will be a single store. So that we will see how we can configure and how we can go through that. But this is what the meaning of this single source of truth. So there is only one truth, right? The whole application will follow. Now state is read only. So again, this is very crazy at this level. So if it is read only, how we gonna change that? But yeah, that is true. It is read only. It is immutable, right? So you cannot directly change. There is a mechanism or there is a way to change the state of the particular application, right? So the only way to change the state is following one particular standard mechanism. What we will talk on that. Changes are made with the pure function. Now, if you are not aware with the pure function, little bit difficult for you to get this statement. Pure function. If you are not clear, let me just tell you very in layman way. It's a function where whatever the inputs you are getting, right, based on that only you will get the output, right? There will be no side effects in the particular function. So you can refer the definition of this pure function. So it point is that like if you want to change the state of your particular store, we will use the pure function only, right? So that is nothing but the core concept of the Redux. Sorry. Okay, so this is the idea where I told you that this is the principle. It will take time for you to understand, so don't worry about that, right? Let's move ahead with the practical thing. Basically, when we want to set up readers, what to be taken care, right? So let's understand that part first. So development environment setup required following packages. There are few more actually, but I have kept this application development right now very simple and very easy to understand. So I have not introduced all the other packages, right? I'll talk later in the demo session so that you will be more clear what I'm trying to say. But first one is the Redux, right? And the second library is the React hyphen Redux, right? These two libraries are the must, you can say, if you want to implement the Redux with the React application, right? Now, first one is the Redux library. This is an core library, you can say. Basically, it will store everything regarding the Redux part. And the React Redux is nothing but the application library which will have the shake hand between React and Redux, right? So this is a common bridge. It will provide certain functionality and features through which the Redux can be configured with the React application, right? We will see certain library, certain components and some functionality between these two, right? So you need to install using this npm install syntax command, and you can simply install both the one. I have also mentioned the directory structure. Those who are novice to the React and Redux development environment, so for them I have just make it simple so that in your root directory wherever you are installing React, so inside the source basically, if you see you can create this kind of structure. It is not that you can stick with this structure only, but you can also have your own way of doing this. But for better management, I have kept the simple thing. Let me read it out for you. Basically, I have taken a screenshot of the my developed application only, so that you can have the better understanding and the latest. So here, if you see, it's a Redux folder I have created. Inside inside that, three folders basically required. One is action. You can remember this name and you can use that because of this is what the concept in Redux we are using. Action is the one you can say folder. Second one is constant. I will come to this later, right? So action, constants, reducers. Okay, these three folders I have created basically, and one file, right? There are more files, but just remember this one file. It is there inside the Redux folder itself, and the file name is store.js. I already said this is not a fix. You can use your own way. You can change the names also, right? But remember, this is just a good practice to have this all the more meaningful names because of these keywords has the meaning in the Redux concepts, Redux fundamentals as well. So this reducer, actions, and store are certain things you need to follow in a same way, right? So this is some dev environment setup. Once you are good with this, right, you can handle the overall development very easily. So now at this level, what we have done that we have achieved the base. Now let's see how we can implement the Redux in the application. So this is an overall idea basically. You can say you can find this particular diagram from the internet anywhere. This is an data flow and it's a unidirectional. If you see, I have kept this particular arrows just to show you that it's an unidirectional. So these views are nothing but your React component from where your applications are there, actions are there, sorry. From actions, you will have some flow here and reducers are there, which will change the store, right? That is what we have discussed at the first level. Again, you will have some data flow from this store to the React component. That is how in general it will work, right? So before we go in detail, let's first of all see if we want to set up a store, right, in the Redux. So what we need to do. So this is the first thing that you have to do when you are creating Redux React application. So after creating a React basic application, let's say how can we set up a store, right? First thing, we need to set up the store. So that is very easy way in the Redux store. Basically, you need to this particular store will bring together the states, actions, and user. So this is what we are going to use. There is a method called create store. Now you can see by the code basically. So Redux provides this particular method called create store, right? That we are going to use here. Okay. And basically, forget about this reducer at the moment, right? That we're gonna create, right? And that we will gonna import here. So this particular create store accept the arguments here that will require the reducer and the initial state. Okay, remember this. Also, you can just omit this line of code right now. This is nothing but the dev tool that we are going to use, right? Hello, am I audible, Nirali?
Yes, yes, Amit, bhai, you are audible.
Okay, I thought there is some connection. Okay, let me continue. So I was talking about the setting of the Redux store basically. So once this store is set up, right? So you can connect with that store and two arguments. First of all, reducer and the empty state that I have provided. I'll discuss about this the extension and all the dev tool that later stage. Okay. So here the store is created. Let's integrate with the application. So to integration is simple. You need to import this store inside the index file that we are creating inside the React application basically. There required one particular provider component from the React Redux, and we will wrap up our whole app inside that, right? So this provider component will wrap up the app actually, which is nothing but the root component. So once you wrap up this app, basically whole the application can use the store which we are going to bind here. So now what I have done, I have just provided this store as an input and simply we can use that. So this store is nothing but the store which we have created just now. So this is how we can import it and we can use that here, right? I hope I have made it clear, right? So this integration is done. Now basically store is there inside the React application so that we can use. Some other important thing that we have to create is nothing but the actions, right? Now, what is actions? Actions are the most important thing. Now, understand basically, let me just brief you with the overall idea. Let's say to understand the whole concept of this Redux, let me just brief you that if we have the, kind of banking system. So when we are going in the bank, basically we are filling out some particular forms, or you can say that some receipts or some things using that, we can communicate. Let's say if you want to withdraw money, we can fill up some check or some kind of slips basically, and that we can hand it over, right? So these slips are nothing but the kind of actions, right? That particular slips mention what exactly you want to do in that particular banking environment. Let's say you want to withdraw money, you want to, let's say you want to create some account or any kind of thing. So this is nothing but the action, right? So here also in the Redux, you have to write the actions which will tell the Redux store what you want to do. So when you are creating actions, actions have the it's nothing but the plain JavaScript object which required one type property. This is must part. Understand this type property is there, right? And basically that type property will have the values like this. Let's say set product. So you are sending the string to this type property, and it will tell you what exactly your action will do, right? So action creator is the function which will create and which will return this action, right? And we will trigger this particular action creator, right? And basically it will return the action, right? So this is what the meaning of that. So this action created is prepared. This action created will be triggered by this particular component. It will goes to the particular Redux store. Right now, forget about this middleware. We will talk on at later stage. Now, when your action will come to this particular inside the Redux store, it will be handled by one entity called reducer. Now, what is reducer? Reducers are nothing but if you are going in the banking system, if you hand over your slip to some clerk or somebody sitting inside, right? They know that if you want to open the bank account, what steps need to be followed. Let's say if you want to withdraw money, what things need to be do, right? So reducer are nothing but that clerk is sitting inside that bank. Similarly, in Redux store, these reducers are nothing but the entity which is responsible for changing the your state of the store. So let's say how we can create this reducer. So this is how you can create the reducer basically. Reducers are nothing but the functions that will change the state in the Redux, right? It is the place where you will write all the logic to change the state. It is a pure function basically through which you can, able to change the state. So it will not change the state directly, but it will immutable, right? So state are not mutable. It will directly change the state. What you can't do inside the reducer, you cannot, directly change the state. You cannot call the API calls, right? And you cannot make this particular function as a pure, non-pure function, basically, right? So how it works? So this is one reducer I have created. It is nothing but a JavaScript function. It's need two arguments. One is the state, and second one is action. Action will tell what to do. So basically, I have kept the switch case. You can keep the if-else condition also based on the type, type attribute of this action. Your switch case will behave what to do. So you can have the many cases based on the particular action. So action will come here according to the type. You will return the state with some payload. So this payload which we have binded inside the action. So if the action has some value or some data to be stored inside the Redux store, you can use this payload and you can assign this. I'll go through the example so that you will more clear. If there is nothing default state, you can return the same state, right? At the initial level, when your application is empty, you can have the initial state. Let's say in my example, I'm creating some product list. So where I have kept this empty array as my initial state, right? At later stage, if action is coming with some product value, I will use that particular product value to be assigned in this product key, right? So that all the array which is coming through the action, that data will simply store. So you can imagine that how I'm going to use that, right? So if I have make this thing more clear to you, right? I'll go ahead and I'll show you that how you can combine the reducers. So basically, simply you can create many reducers at the same time and you can combine them, right? So this is one more level that you can use the combine reducer as a function and you can pass all the reducer, and basically this is how you can combine the reducers. So many reducers you can create and all the reducer can be combined because of in your React store you can put one single reducer only. You cannot put different reducer. This particular mechanism is done to create a large scale application development. In your small application, if you have kept the single reducer only, no need to combine everything. So that is how smoothly it will work. Okay, so overall idea you have understood how it worked. Last thing that
Hello, Amit bhai.
yes, Nirali. Yes,
Amit bhai,
Nirali.
in between we have some from your end we are getting some network connection issues.
Oh,
Um, but it's just for split seconds and
mhm.
then your voice is coming okay. So if
I hope
there is
some
any
network issue.
better network connectivity in your end, then can you change the connection?
Uh, Let me see, right? I'm
Yeah.
about to finish. This is almost my last slide, right? So let's
Okay,
see if
then
it
it
is.
is fine.
Yeah.
Then it is fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me go through the last important concept of the whole diagram. Basically, how can we read this data, right? So if you are going in the application and if you want to read the data here, so how we can achieve this? So for that reason, just simply understand this. So here, if you can see in the Redux app store is integrated with React application. So reading the store, first of all, so there is a one hooks I have used, use selector. Basically, that hooks you can use for reading the data. This hooks will take one function, and that function will have the input as a state, right? And you can return any particular state your store's product, right? So right now I have product as a one array which I want to return. So I can read that value from the this
Amit bhai, you are
function
not audible.
is as a array of the product I want to this product I simply using UI.
Hello.
Okay, you don't let me change the network. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, no worries. Okay.
Okay, I have changed my network. I hope it will be more clear now. But this
Yes,
is
it is clear
about when.
now.
Okay, okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll just
So
repeat this.
last few seconds, yeah, if you can repeat it. Yeah.
Yeah, please. So this slide is basically how you can read the Redux store inside the React application. You can see here I have kept the one hook that is use selector, which is coming from React Redux library. This particular hook will use in this way. You can pass one function inside this hook, right? And here you can see that basically what I'm doing, that this particular function will take state of the Redux store as an input, and it will return any particular object that you want to read. So I have the product as a state member, so I can simply access that, and simply I will store that particular product inside my React application. Anytime your store will change with this value, you will have the new value which is from the particular Redux store. So use selector is the hook we are using. Okay. Similarly, if you want to trigger action, right? Trigger action to change something in the store. So first of all, we read the data. Now we are dispatching the action, so that while dispatching the action, you want to change something inside the store. Basically, you want to change the store value, right? So for that, dispatch is the method. That method take action, right? So what we are going to do with the actions that we have created, we have to call that action from our React application. And to do that, there is a hook called use detach, dispatch. Sorry, use dispatch is the hook, right? That we gonna call in this way. Let's see line number 4. We have called that use dispatch, and dispatch will be created like this. This dispatch, as I said, it will take action as an argument. So in my application, this set products is the action which I have created, and this application, sorry, this action basically have some data, right? I'll tell you what this data is all about. So this data is nothing but the data I have fetched from some places. This is nothing but the product list you can imagine, right? I have not kept the data value right now, but you can see that, right? And that is what I'm gonna simply dispatch. So once this will be dispatched, basically you can see through this diagram. So my view has this component has dispatched that action. That action will bring that payload and that data using dispatch to this reducer. Reducer will decide that what to be stored, where to be stored, and it will change the store. Once the store is changed, it will again get back that data to this particular place, right? So this is how it will work. Now, middleware, I have not discussed with you. Let me just brief you with middleware. It is just a concept where you want to make some asynchronous thing. Let's say if you want to make an API call, you can use the kind of asynchronous mechanism inside this particular middleware. The middleware which I am referring right now is the thunk middleware. There are many more other middlewares are there. Basic mechanism might be different in that. If you create the asynchronous action creator normally return either object or a function. When it's written a function, your Redux thunk, that is middleware, take care of that and it will handle. If it is a plain object, then the normal data flow will be there because of in plain object, it will be simply forwarded to reducer. If it is a function, basically it that function is created to make some API calls and all that kind of asynchronous task, right? So that can be completed, and that at the end you have to manually create the action, and that you can forward it again, which will come here. And if it is a plain action, basically which return the object, then this particular will go ahead in the actual flow. So that is how middleware will work. So basically, if you want to make some asynchronous actions in between, right? So you can't simply put it anywhere else because reducer are the pure functions. You cannot do this task, right? Actions are the plain objects where also you cannot do this. So middleware is the place, where you can follow this thing. So that is what the overall idea. Last thing, reducer, Redux will work with this particular dev tool through which, you can check the live status of your store actually. So it has the timestamp mechanism, right, through which you can do that. I'll just discuss with you that how you can enter this particular, how you can combine this Redux dev tool inside the application. So this is how you can do this. This particular piece of line you have to add. This is nothing but this dev tool is nothing but it's an extension in the Chrome or many more other browsers. So you can use that. And at the end, you need to add this particular line of code and you can find it out from the internet easily and you can just simply write here and this is how you can use them. Now what will be the use of this that I'm going to talk to you basically, so you will have the more clarity. So that right now I have completed with my presentation. I'll just quickly show you before we go for the quiz. Just give me a moment. I wanted to show you the particular demo. Basically this is the application which I was talking about, right? And let me bring the demo to you so that I can just discuss the dev tool and I will just quickly wrap up the application presentation. So this is an application where I have created a particular demo application, which is a fake API which return this product list. And basically, if you click on any product, it will fetch the detail of this product like this. So this is an React application where I'm using dev tool. So if I want to open, right, after configuring of the Redux dev tool, you will have this particular UI through which you can easily maintain and manage your, Redux store at any level. So let me show you that, right? So this is nothing but the live status of your application. If you see here in this particular environment, right now I have opened one product. So this is two values I'm storing right now. If you able to see this, all product, this is the list of product which is there on the main page, right? And this product, which is nothing but a single product which I'm storing here, right? So this is what the, and this is the action which I have triggered. So set product action, set selected product action. These are the actions that you can see, right? If I click on this, so it will take you back to the timestamp. And if you see this product is null now, this product keyword. If I'm putting on this, so now it will execute this and it will. So by the timeline, you can able to travel inside this application and any number of actions that you have triggered, you can go back and you can refer what is actually stored inside the store. So if you will just close this application, this store will become empty because of it is just showing you the live status of the Redux store. right? If the application is not running, this particular store value will be empty, null state, you can say, right? The initial state. So this is how this particular thing is done, right? So yeah, that is what all from my side. Uh, Nirali, if you're there, can you please start with the quiz and that thing?
Sure, Amit bhai, I will in the chat box we will share the link for the quiz.
If you ready with that, I'll start the timer. I have kept the 3 minute timer, guys, so you can, go through that.
So quiz link is posted and yes, you can start the timer, Amit.
Okay, I have started. Okay, so yes, go through the quiz, right? It's a basically quiz which is fun loving, but yeah, definitely it will, give you some basic idea that what we have covered and what things you have to, understand through the session. Go ahead.
So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you guys for attending the session.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Amit.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. And
Thank you.
thank you, Amit. It was very
Thank you.
good session.
Thank you.
We learned a lot today.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.